morning, everybody. It appears our live stream is up, and we'll get started with today's session. Welcome to the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. The committee is assembled today electronically for the purpose of inviting public comment on legislation. Before we get started, I want to share some information related to the fact that this is being conducted in an electronic format. This meeting is being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel. This means that anyone who is a participant in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People testifying cannot be seen or heard until they are called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after this meeting has concluded. In a moment, I'll have committee members introduce themselves. Before I do, I'll ask committee members to keep their mics muted until I call on them. And one of the things that has been very helpful to everybody is if committee members have their titles so people know how to address them. And if those giving testimony today can also look at their Zoom identifiers and make sure it says what you want it to say. And you can adjust that by going into your box, or I think on the attendee list, you would need to put your mouse over the over your name and look for more, and you should have an option to rename. At this point, I'd like to invite the members to introduce themselves, and Representative Geiger, would you start us off?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Representative Valley Geiger. I'm representing District 93, Rockland and Owl's Head.
Good morning. I'm Representative John Andrews. I represent District 73 in Western Maine with the towns of Buckfield, Hebron, and Paris. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Sarah Pepworth. I represent House District 133 in the Blue Hill Peninsula.
Good morning. I'm Senator Scott Searway, and I represent District 16, which includes Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, and Unity Township.
Good morning. I'm Representative Jack Deershaw. I'm representing House District 111, which is Madison, Norwich Walk, and Solon.
Good morning, Maine. I'm Representative Sue Austin. I hail from Gray, my hometown. I also have the portions of Raymond, portions of Casco, and all of Fry Island.
Representative Tavis Hassenfuss, representing House District 81, Winthrop, Reedfield, and part of Monmouth.
Have we missed anyone yet?
I guess I'll go. Sorry about that.
That's right.
Good morning, everyone. Representative Reagan LaRochelle, House District 86, which is part of Augusta.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Representative Tiffany Roberts, your House Chair, representing House District 6, which is the majority of North Berwick and South Berwick.
And good morning. I am Senator Chip Curry, and I represent the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County. And it is minus 10 degrees last time I checked on the front porch. So welcome, everybody. A few more announcements for as we get started and remind ourselves on how we do this. Let's see here. A reminder for committee members and for those who are in the attendees and giving testimony today. Please do not use the chat for any substantive comments. That those need to be delivered orally. That's part of the public record, and chat is not recorded. Chat can be used if you need to reach out to our committee clerk, and if there's a technical issue that you're having trouble, chat is a good feature. It's helpful, particularly if you could identify specifically that person to reach out to. And that way, especially, we're not distracting anyone who's giving testimony. I realize I forgot to introduce our committee clerk. Eva Reed is serving as our committee clerk. Eva, would you mind sharing your screen so people can see you? This is Eva Reed, and she'll be managing the moving people from attendee into testimony and solving any technical issues throughout the day. Thank you very much for your service today. And Ms. Rachel Olson is our committee analyst, and she will be supporting the committee throughout the day as well. Let's see, that was the chat. House sponsors and persons wishing to testify will be called upon. So we'll start with the bill sponsor, and then any co-sponsors that wish to speak. And then from that, we will move on to those who are speaking for the bill, those who are speaking against the bill, and then finally those who are speaking neither for nor against the bill. We do enforce a 3-minute time limit for those giving testimony, not inclusive of the bill sponsor. And if you get to 3 minutes, we don't have a wonderful way to do it, except a gentle reminder, as we will interrupt you slightly to say that if you could wrap it up in the next moment. There's no clock. We've kind of we haven't yet figured out how to do that in the Zoom world. In the physical committee, there's kind of a countdown clock that people see, and we don't yet have that. So with that, I'll now open up the hearing on. Oh, let me address the bills that we will be addressing. We're going to start with LD 1785. We'll move to 1793, and then we'll wrap up with our public hearing sessions on LD 1800. So we'll stick to the order that is in the calendar. And just for committee members and public, I want to remind everybody where they can see all of this. Ms. Olson, actually, before we open up the session, can you remind, would you mind doing a screen share? Can I put you on the spot? And the best way to navigate as committee members want to see testimony or see the bill, best way to get through that, and also how the public can get to it.
Great. Okay. So the best way to do this, whether you are a committee member or a member of the public, is to start out on the Maine State Legislature's homepage. I like to start by clicking in the middle box with the picture over of the Capitol here. Click committees. And this brings you to the drop-down menu. Choose committee. So look for the committee that you would like to get information from. This one is Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. So you click on that, and this brings up a variety of options. In this case, for the work that we're doing today, we have 3 public hearings scheduled. And if you would like to see the testimony that has been submitted for these 3 public hearings, you want to go and click on the right-hand side, the symbol of the page, this little Word document symbol. So don't click the hyperlink for public hearing. That won't take you to the right spot. You have to click the page symbol. If you click on that, that will bring you up to what's called the testimony portal. Sends all the documents here. And then to get the ones that are closed, so we'll have one of them open, and then if you want to see the remainder, you have to click the drop down arrow on the right hand side, and that will close the one that was open and open the new one. And so you'll be able to see the testimony in that location. The other option, oh no, I think that's all we need for today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And at this point, we will open up the public hearing on LD 1785. Is Ms. Reed is the bill sponsor here?
I just let them in. They should be just 1 second.
Okay, great. Thank you. That is a reminder, while we're in this pause, just one of the reminders to those who are giving testimony, there is this moment where you go from attendee to panelists and everything looks like it just shut down. But that you've been kicked out of everything. That's not the case. You're just being transferred, and you'll show up here within a few seconds. Welcome, Senator Baldacci.
Good morning, Senator Curry, and good morning, members of the IDEA committee. Yeah, it's a little bit like, you know, they're going to beam you up, Scotty, on Star Trek. So, but thank you for the invite. It's about -10 degrees here as well. So thank you, and thank you for allowing me to present the bill LD 1785 to address staffing shortages in critical public safety jobs through economic incentives. Good morning, Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. I am Senator Joe Baldacci. I represent Senate District 9, which is made up of Bangor and Herman. I am here today to present LD 1785, an act to address staffing shortages in critical public safety jobs through economic incentives. The focus of this bill is on vital public services, law enforcement, firefighting, EMS, public health workers, and the goal is to add to efforts to attract and retain people to these professions and make a commitment to these important public services. Maine has been experiencing a shortage of people in all of these professions and services even before the pandemic. And these services are vital to our public safety and our public health, whether or not there is a pandemic. Even before COVID-19 entered our lives, there were shortages. They have been exacerbated greatly, and they, in many instances, cause a direct harm to the public by the continuation of these shortages of people. The pandemic has exacerbated the problem, made it much more difficult to recruit and retain qualified individuals to fill these important jobs, with many workers in this field being overworked. As a result of this shortage, many are leaving jobs because of severe burnout. This bill is an attempt to intervene at the legislative level to do, as the title says, to try to address this workforce shortage with some economic incentives. Talked with the Professional Firefighters of Maine, as well as I spoke the other day with Troy Morton, with the Penobscot County Sheriff's Department, who's the head of the Maine Sheriff's Association, about the bill. The Maine Sheriff's Association indicated to me that if the bill included correctional officers, they would be very supportive of this bill. And I think in terms of language, obviously, I'd like to work with the committee staff people in terms of, you know, coming up with a much more more identifiable, more focused list of what would be the eligible occupations. Stakeholders know firsthand how much strain has been placed on EMT and other emergency public services during the pandemic. In the legislature, we should be pulling all the levers we can to address this issue. The bill addresses this issue by appropriating funds to the Public Service Student Loan Forgiveness Program in the Finance Authority of Maine. The current federal program, which is very good, requires 10 years of student loan prepayment before they can consider a waiver. And if you want to draw people to these important professions, and I'm not talking about student loans in general, I'm talking about the people who are willing to come and commit themselves to these professions, then we need to help them with their ongoing student loan payments so they can have a 10-year record to apply for the federal. So my hope is that we can use this money to help people now with student loan payments, and also to help young families who commit to these professions with mortgages to get homes. Once you buy a home, you establish roots, and it will help in terms of a long-term issue. I think a lot of young families, and what we really need to do is to step up our efforts as a state to attract young professionals to the state and to draw as many as we can to these vital services. It will pay enormous dividends to our society and our state for years to come if we can do this on a sustained basis. So I'm asking for a total appropriation of $10 million, of which half of that would be for student loan forgiveness and the other half for home mortgage assistance. I recognize I'm going to need to work with staff on identifying the occupations with much more clarity, but I wanted to give you the broad kind of scope of what I wanted to focus on and obviously get your input. I really appreciate your time and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Senator Baldacci? Thank you very much for your presentation. Chair recognizes Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Senator. How are you?
Good morning, Representative. Nice to talk to you.
I appreciate you bringing this bill forward. I can tell you in my district, I have heard nothing but issues and distraught around our EMS services. Some of the ideas that they have brought forth to me as far as recruitment incentives are different from what's in your bill. So I'm wondering, did you consult with the EMS boards or anything like that on this at all? Or I know you mentioned a couple other stakeholders, but I'm wondering, this seems to be a statewide issue,
Right.
really with EMS in particular. So I'm wondering what input they had on this.
Right. And I spoke to Jay Bradshaw, who's the head of the State EMS Association yesterday, and they filed a letter of support, I believe. I don't know if he's on the list to testify, but he was more than willing to come and testify in support. The EMS are through the organization are supporting this, and they would like some consideration for EMS that aren't employed by the government. So I think he put in his testimony that he'd like to see us talk about EMS in general as an occupation, whether or not they're governmentally employed or employed by another, or employed by a private nonprofit, or so obviously we're going to look at that, but EMS has expressed their support for it. And I think they recognize a lot of young people. In order to attract young people, the student loan issue is one of the biggest issues, as well as buying a home. And those tend to be the two biggest issues to attracting younger people. So yes, thank you very much for that question. I get the same comments here in the Bangor area, and the EMS board has indicated their support of this.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Baldacci, for bringing this forward. I just have two quick questions.
Sure.
One is, as I read this, it's my understanding that the $10 million is a one-time funding, and that as those payments are dispersed and start to be paid back, that it will become an ongoing fund based on the paybacks.
That's
Is that
what I was
correct?
hoping. Yeah, no, thank you, Representative Geiger. I was hoping that this could be created as a revolving fund, as you're saying. That's my hope. And obviously, I think that I didn't want to make it a permanent appropriation. I thought it was important that we see how this works. But yes, I'd like to see it be a revolving fund, just like you mentioned.
And my second question to you is, I'm assuming the access to forgiveness of student loan applies to people who have degrees and other things, but are willing to enter one of these professions. Is that right? Or is this only to be paid back for the education required to enter these professions?
I think that it's each occupation has to determine what the appropriate qualifications are. So my concern is just having the people in the professions doing the work. That would be who I would want the assistance to go to, is the people actually serving in these roles, regardless of their prior degrees, as long as they met the occupational qualifications.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Senator Searway.
Morning, Senator.
Good morning. How are you?
Good to see you.
So I just was wondering if you had looked into any other type incentives besides just student loans, like maybe retirement pensions, looking at maybe other benefits that might benefit them, or even apprenticeship programs, that sort of thing. I didn't know if you had looked.
Looked at that issue. I'm happy to do so, but I wanted to focus on a bill that would be of interest to younger people, because I think that the biggest issue here is attracting people to these professions and getting younger people interested in it. But I'm happy to review the possibilities of providing incentives in terms of retirement programs as well. But that was just what I wanted to focus on, was attracting and retaining younger people to these important professions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative LaRochelle.
Thank you, Senator. Hi, Senator Baldacci.
Good morning.
Good morning. My question was, I just have a lack of background in these types of incentives. Is this model used to recruit or incentivize other groups? And if so, what has the success been for that?
So I think that Bill Norbert from FAME is going to, or has submitted testimony. And I've talked to Bill several times as I was developing this bill, and I appreciate his comments. There are different models that are out there, but they're pretty limited in terms of the state. Like the federal model is the 10-year payment, and then they'll consider the waiver. I think in his written testimony, he provides that they have a tuition waiver for public servants. It's available, but the tuition waiver for public servants is only available if your dad or mom or member of the family were killed or died while in public service. That's obviously that's very unfortunate, or died as a result of injuries received during the performance of duties. So I think that the current ones are all good. I just think that it's not broad enough. None of them are really broad enough to address, the ongoing shortage now and the need to attract young people. And I'm not wedded to any particular program. I just think that student loans and home mortgages are the primary areas where, as a young family, I mean, those are prime economic issues for any young family trying to make sure they have a stable life. So there are programs, but from my review of them, they're rather limited. And as I said, the federal one is a good one, and I'm all for it, but it's just, in an ongoing labor shortage in the middle of a pandemic, I think we need to do more than what is currently on the table. Thank you, Representative LaRochelle.
Thank you.
And I just want to point out that to Senator Baldacci, both of the people that you've referenced, Mr. Bradshaw and Mr. Norbert, are here and plan on and expect to give testimony.
Right. I'm gonna, if there are no other questions, Mr. Chairman, I have to go back to HHS because we're having a long hearing on some important issues. So I told Senator Claxton I would come back.
I don't see any other questions. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Senator Baldacci.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
So next up is Mr. Bradshaw with the Maine Ambulance Association. Welcome, Mr. Bradshaw.
Good morning, Senator. Are you able to hear me all right?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thank you. Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, my name is Jay Bradshaw. I am currently the Executive Director of the Maine Ambulance Association. Our association is a nonprofit professional trade association. We represent approximately half of the transporting ambulance services in the state, who do approximately 80% of the calls in the state. My personal background is I've been involved in EMS since the early 1980s as a municipal volunteer, as a service chief, and I spent nearly 30 years with the Maine Office of Emergency Medical Services, retiring after 20 years as the EMS director. I've submitted written testimony, and I won't belabor the points that have been well made about the workforce shortages. You've all heard this daily. I'm heartened to hear that many of your constituents have also contacted you directly. But what I really wanted to focus on is a couple of points. One is a point that Senator Baldacci made, is that this didn't start with the pandemic. In the years that I've been involved in EMS, there's been an ongoing shortage of people who are willing to volunteer or take this on as a paid profession. I think more recently, some of the changes that have made this more pronounced are that people are just more protective of their time. And in general, I think they're a little bit less interested in both volunteering and in going into a profession where the hours are long. It means missing many birthdays and holidays and a work schedule that is a real challenge. It is also a tremendously rewarding profession. And it's one that really will call for support from a multifaceted approach to address. But my issue with the bill, while I fully support it and appreciate the goal, is to have it expanded somewhat, because the bill as written seems to include just municipal public safety folks. And in Maine, about 40% of the ambulance services are not municipal. Now, every EMS service in the state is required to have the same training, the same licensure. They operate under the same protocols. They have to have the same equipment. They have to respond 24/7, 365, regardless of the location or the ability of a patient to pay the bill. And so what we would suggest is that you consider taking a look at the definition of both EMS service and EMS provider that is used in the state EMS law, which is Title 32 and it's Section 83. And by doing that, it recognizes that these individuals and the services, regardless of their corporate structure, are benefiting from this support. I'll just simply stop there. That's really the main point that we wanted to convey, but I am more than happy to answer any questions that you have now or at any time regarding EMS issues. There will be other bills that are coming up. There are several other titles. I know Senator Curry has one dealing with rural EMS that will be coming up later in your session. So I'm happy to be a resource however I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. And I want to thank you for your service, your history of service, not just today. I've had the pleasure of doing a couple days of ride along on shifts with EMS in Lewiston and here in Waldo County, and just incredibly professional crews, and a scale of hours worked that is unlike any other most other professions. When people tell me they're working 70 to 100 hours a week, just astounds me. And also very much, I'm very concerned about the compensation in, I met more senior, EMS paramedics that were looking to retire, and the money just not having been there, from with benefits packages, and retirement meant going down to one job rather than two jobs, and being in their late 60s. And that's the whole system. I think it needs an incredible review and attention right now. So, questions. So thank you for being here, and thank you for advocating for EMS. Chair recognizes Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Senator Curry. Mr. Bradshaw, what's the biggest hindrance in your experience for, to get new people into the profession, and also, the biggest reason for people leaving early?
Wow, that's a short question with a very challenging answer. I'm not sure that there is a single issue. I think that part of what we need to do is to really launch an effective public relations campaign, because we hear a lot about the challenges of EMS, and the wages are certainly part of it. Wages are related to reimbursement. The number one reimbursement comes, or the top reimbursements come from Medicare and Medicaid, which are, pay well under the cost of providing a service. I think some of the biggest challenges are helping folks to realize truly what a rewarding profession this is. I didn't start in EMS. I was in the private sector before getting involved in EMS, but I think that we need to do an improved job of letting folks know what a difference they can make in their community. That said, folks need to be able to make a living wage working less than 80 hours a week. I mean, it's just ridiculous to think that somebody would have to work 2 full-time jobs just to pay the bills. The challenges include the fact that to become a paramedic takes about 2 years. It's an associate degree program, costs about $15,000. And at the end of that, depending upon where one goes, they may make $20 plus or minus an hour. Start doing the math about what it costs to feed a family and to pay a mortgage and to pay back your student loans. And that's a real challenge on that. So I think that we need to do better about those things. I think, quite frankly, we need to do a better job about making sure that EMS is at the beginning of a discussion when we talk about healthcare and public safety and public health. I think oftentimes people just don't think about EMS. We're sort of a footnote, and I think it needs to be elevated a little bit. So I think that the issues are many and complex. I don't know that there's a single easy fix, but I think that somebody else mentioned retirement, wages, benefits, those type of things are all a big part of the challenge.
Chair recognizes Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Bradshaw, for being here today. I wondered if you could give me a sense. You said paramedics, when they're done, 2-year education, $20 an hour. Any sense for ambulance drivers and EMTs, what they make, and what education goes into that? And then I guess my question, and perhaps you know this, Senator Baldacci's already left. What percentage of EMS is volunteer versus employed?
So I'll try to hit those in the order you asked them. The ambulance drivers are becoming a license level, but most ambulance drivers who do not actually provide patient care are a volunteer position. There may be some services that pay a stipend because obviously somebody has to drive an ambulance. In terms of providing the patient care in the back of the truck, an EMT course is about a semester. It costs about $1,500. An advanced EMT, which is the next step up, is about a year-long program. An AEMT course is about $4,500. And I mentioned a paramedic course is about $15,000. Now that varies depending upon where they took the course and whether it's a certificate course or a degree course. So that's all over the place. In terms of volunteers, that's really hard to answer because I think part of that depends upon how you define a volunteer. If you define a volunteer as somebody who receives anything less than minimum wage, I would suggest that there's probably 20% of the providers in the state are volunteer. So I guess I don't have a clear answer on that because it's just really hard to define a volunteer. What I can say with a high degree of certainty is that the number of services who are able to utilize volunteers is diminishing because the number of volunteers is diminishing. I live in Belgrade. We for years have had a volunteer service that I actually helped start in 1982. But over the last several years, that lack of volunteers has forced us to start off with hiring one full-time firefighter EMT, and now we're fortunate to have a second. And that's the trend that we're seeing in many other places. Somebody else mentioned Winthrop. I was a service chief in Winthrop for many years, and there again is a community that started off as volunteers. So while the numbers may sound like they're out there, the reality is the number of calls where volunteers are able to respond are diminishing significantly. And so services have had to transition to more and more paid staff. And with the fixed reimbursement, the only thing that does is it shifts the burden to local taxpayers. It's not like we're not making widgets. We can't make more widgets. We can't sell more of a product. We are dependent upon the reimbursement that comes in response to our ability to provide services.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Bradshaw? Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have Mr. Bill Norbert. Welcome, Mr. Norbert. Welcome back.
Can you hear me but not see me?
We can hear you but not see you.
Yeah, it said the host has disabled my video, so I don't blame you.
Let's see if I can fix that.
I don't blame you, but if you want to fix it.
I just sent him a request to turn it back on. There you go.
Yeah,
okay.
Great.
There we go.
Thank you. Did you mean to go on to neither for nor against at this stage? There's no one else waiting to testify.
Let me double check. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Ms. Reed, can you confirm there's no one else giving testimony for nor against? Or no one else giving testimony for?
There is nobody else giving testimony for.
Okay. Were there any co-sponsors that are on this committee that wish to give any testimony? Okay, we'll go on to, is there anyone opposed? Ms. Reed? I'm shifting over to the attendee list to see if there's anyone opposed. Do you see anyone?
No.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Norbert. And yes, now it's time for those neither for nor against.
Thank you, Senator Curry and Representative Robert, distinguished members of the IDEA Committee. Good morning. My name is Bill Norbert. I'm the Governmental Affairs and Communications Manager at the Finance Authority of Maine. I live in Brunswick, and I'm here to testify neither for nor against LD 1785. As you've heard, the bill would establish through a $5 million one-time appropriation, the fund to provide public service student loan forgiveness at FAME. And as we heard, it would provide student loan forgiveness for local and county law enforcement officers, firefighters, EMTs, dispatchers, public health workers. And then there's another part of the bill that would appropriate funds to FAME to provide no interest home mortgages to these same workers. That part concerns us because we don't do housing or mortgages by law. We're prohibited from doing that. So you might just want to make a note. That is typically Maine Housing's bailiwick. And I have spoken with the sponsor, Senator Baldacci, about that part of the bill. We want to commend Senator Baldacci for presenting this proposal, for championing our public servants, and for considering FAME as a possible administrator of the program. As we know, Maine's public servants do heroic work every day, especially during the pandemic when they're dealing with, as we've heard, great hours, great challenges, not only doing their regular jobs, but balancing that with the huge public safety concerns of a pandemic. And they do heroic work every day. Enacting a new student loan forgiveness program to both retain and attract such professionals could be a meaningful tool in providing some relief to these professionals in addressing Maine's pressing workforce challenges. If funded and provided with more details, and Senator Baldacci did allude to this, there are a number of details that would need to be worked out. FAME could administer this program as we do similar other loan repayment, loan, or loan forgiveness programs. I do want to point out there was some discussion about making it a revolving loan. And I just want to call to your attention, that is a very different animal than a loan repayment or loan forgiveness program. Keep in mind, a revolving loan would have us providing money up front for loans, which these folks apparently don't need. They've already gotten debt or a student loan that they want to pay off. And then after a certain term or service, folks would pay back their loan to us, and that helps revolve the loan. We do that typically on our commercial side, the business loans we do. But we do have, for instance, a Maine Health Professions Loan Program that offers low interest loans, and folks pay that back gradually. But this, I don't see as a revolving loan because I don't think the sponsor or any of you are intending for us to make a loan. Initially, we're trying to attract and reward folks for working in these fields by helping them with some benefit, and that would be forgiving part of their student loan. So just keep that in mind. As drafted, the bill is quite broad. Senator Baldacci alluded to this. The applicant pool is very broad. I've made a few notes in my testimony about some things we would ask. For instance, who would be included in public health workers? Are those the public part in particular? Would that include people who work at only not-for-profits or public hospitals? We wonder whether a term of service should be included. Typically with our other programs, folks in return for, say, 5 years of service get a portion each year of those years of service repaid to their student loan servicer. And you can see in my testimony, I've mentioned the housing mortgage issue. Also, there's a minor issue about language we would prefer to have about administering costs. Typically, we have broad language, although our administrative costs are typically quite low. We typically don't tie it to the interest accrued on a fund. You never know how much is going to be appropriated. It could be a small amount at first. Typically, we just take a reasonable amount, reasonable cost. We do want to point out there does exist a federal public service loan forgiveness program for these same professions. This has been on the books for a number of years. And as Senator Baldacci mentioned, it does require 10 years worth of service. And then after that time, you make payments, but after that time, whatever's left in your balance for your student loan is paid in full. And that amount actually won't be considered taxable. So that's a unique feature of that program. And it is run by the U.S. Department of Education, and I've shared a web link to it. But it is something for you to consider, that there is a federal program existing that could help these professions. Senator Baldacci mentioned the tuition waiver program. I won't go into that. That is for the survivors, spouse, or children of folks who have been killed in the line of profession. I just wanted you to be aware of that. I'm not saying that's the same thing. It's just another thing that touches on this issue so that you know the full menu. You know that we do offer a variety of programs for healthcare professionals. We're getting ready to launch the new healthcare professional program that you all set up last session, as well as the nursing education loan one. But we already had on the books the Doctors for Maine's Future Scholarship Program and the Maine Dental Education Loan and Loan Repayment Program, which has been successful in bringing dentists into low-served areas of the state to help repay their loans. So those are just some examples of some programs. And finally, as you know, we briefed you last week with Maine Housing about this idea of tying student loan repayment with housing and first-time home buyers, the LD 1709 resolve. So you have that information as well to consider. And we're happy to work with you on that concept, this concept, as you wish. I thank you for considering my comments. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norbert. Chair recognizes Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Norbert, thanks so much for clarifying, of course, the loan forgiveness versus something that can continue on. So that means that this is I'm unclear if Senator Baldacci is asking for a one-time $5 million loan to be used to set up a program to be used until it's used up, or if this is an annual appropriation to keep this program going. I think the advantage of an immediate forgiveness, of course, is that the federal program seems very complex. Many students, including my own son, have tried to access that program only to discover they can't make their way through the rules, or they discover their loans don't qualify them. And it doesn't help for 10 years to make a living, to be able to pay your bills, because it still requires 10 years of payment. Whereas this one would forgive up front. But I agree with you, it's concerning that there isn't within the bill a term of service in return for that forgiveness. Any sense of how much $5 million would buy and over how many years for a specified population of people?
Well, we could do this. This is always dangerous, but we could do the math together and publicly. But I guess you could start, one thing you have to decide is, how much is each person going to be forgiven? Is it $35,000 or $33,000? That's the average debt for students in Maine. However, we heard from the EMS gentleman, Mr. Bradshaw, that I think $15,000 is the associate's degree cost or debt. So once you determine, how much are we going to forgive or repay, then naturally you can divide that by into the 5 million. And that's just one way of approaching it. I don't know whether the senator has ideas about, how many loans he'd like to see. Does he want them spread out amongst different professions? Is it first come, first serve? But basically you would divide, however much money you have by the maximum to be forgiven per person under the program, and then you might get the number of individuals who might benefit, minus a small administrative cost for FAME to help administer it.
So I quickly did the math. If we forgave 20,000 per student, it'd be 250 students in a year.
Okay, yep, that's helpful.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Senator Searway.
Oh, one thing, can I interrupt? I'm so sorry. You might want to divide that by 4, or it depends on the term of service, 3 years, 5 years. But if you're going to forgive, is it that amount total, or is it that amount for Representative Geiger per year? But we typically, you know, if you're going to repay a loan, say 25,000 per year for 4 years, that's 100,000. So instead of saying 25, you might say 100,000 divided into the 5 million.
This sounds like we're starting to get into work session territory. So I'm gonna ask a call on Senator Searway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was listening to the loan part. I wonder if it could be a little less money, but it could possibly buy down the interest on buying first house. You know, it's kind of like a car loan. I mean, they do it all the time where they put money towards financing, or you can choose the financing and take out a loan somewhere else or whatever. But at least it gives them the option to say that we can help you have a loan at a cheaper rate. And I think, you know, sometimes these loans on schools actually give you an incentive to do well in school. I had a roommate that his parents paid his way and he didn't work for it, and he flunked out because he just didn't have the incentive because he had to pay it back. So sometimes I'm just kind of worried when we go and we pay for their loan, look at it as, hey, it's not a big, well, I'm not gonna, you know, have the incentive to go and finish it, or at least not get the education they could have, you know, so do as well. So I'm just kind of concerned about that part. I don't know, what's your thought on that?
I remember you mentioned last week, Senator, the main housing idea. So I hear what you're saying. I would point out it can get very complex if you're to administer a program that has a variety of options, especially if it delves into housing and FAME's doing the student loan. Another cautionary note I would just say is folks who refinance their loan, if they have federal loans, they would lose out on any potential federal benefit down the road. So this public service forgiveness program, they would be out of that if they refinance for a lower rate, or, you know, they have a new different loan that's private or done by FAME. So that's something to caution about, because it's good to have, although there may be difficulties and problems with the federal program, they do offer some more favorable terms for forgiveness and relief in emergencies. But also folks in this program maybe would be able to avail themselves after 10 years of the public service program. So that's something to keep in mind.
And just follow up on that. How would it be to buy the interest down to 0 on a FAME loan?
How would that work? Would it cost?
Well, so in other words, I don't know if you got like a 5% interest rate.
Yeah.
And how would it be to buy down the interest on loans?
Yeah. So that's the calculation we'd have to consider with more details. I think I mentioned last week, we do offer lower interest rate student loan refinance now for Maine students. So I just would worry it would get very complicated to do that. Yeah.
Just a thought. I think you know, if that's something to help, I think that would be possible too. Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Ducharme.
Thank you, Chairman Curry. And thank you, Mr. Norbert, for being here to help sort out some of the questions and provide us with some answers here. According to Maine EMS, some of the sources, there's about 5,600 of these folks in the state of Maine. So if you did simple math and divided it equally among all 5,600, you get $893 per, which is not going to help them very much. I served on the board of directors for our local ambulance service here in Madison, and what we did as a way to try and attract people was the service itself would pay for the training, providing they would stay with the service for a period of time. And that's been fairly successful, at least in our ambulance service, to the extent that some of the other services started to pirate and pay people all kinds of money to do it. And then at that point in time, the service instituted a policy that said, if you leave us for another service, the other service has to reimburse us, which happens in a lot of the police departments around with Criminal Justice Academy and so forth and so on. My question for you is, when you put in these length of service requirements for these kinds of things, and I know you have some programs for that, and I struggle with the numbers of programs. It seems like there's so many that, Representative Geiger indicated that she had a family member that was struggling to wade through the morass of regulations and so forth. I can understand. I mean, just sitting on this committee, I can count 10 programs that we've talked about to help various groups that are all worthy, but it's just become such a big thing. So I think having some kind of a service requirement is good, but does it in fact cause people to stay in their jobs? Can you answer that?
I don't have precise statistics with me, but I can tell you the vast majority of folks who participate in our programs that do require a term do stay in them. There are penalties or benefits once they leave, but I could try and get you some information for the work session. But I do think it's certainly most folks do abide by the terms. Of course, there's a lot of incentive to do so with the terms of our programs, to have your loan forgiven or helped repaid. But we do encounter some folks who, for various life challenges, life reasons, can abide by the terms, and then it either converts to a loan that has to be paid back, or they simply don't get the benefit going forward anymore.
And just to clarify, maybe Senator Baldacci would have to clarify, is the intent to provide student loan forgiveness for those going into health occupations, as opposed to someone who goes to, say, Boston College and comes out with $200,000 in debt with a degree in history and then wants to become an EMT? Are we going to fund that education, or should we really focus in on what we really need? I mean, maybe that's a work session question, but I think that's something that we all need to think about. If we're going to attack the problem, well, I don't know that I would be in favor of spending Maine taxpayer money to fund a degree in something completely out of the vocational pursuit that the person is looking in. I think it would be an easier sell to fund education in the pursuit that we need them in. So, and again, work session stuff.
I think we have crossed into work
Senator
session,
Curry.
Representative Ducharme. So we're building those skills again, and that discipline again between public hearing and work session. So are there any other questions for Mr. Norbert? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Norbert.
You're welcome.
We have in the attendee list, I see we also have Julie Shermer speaking neither for nor against. Ms. Reed, if you could promote Ms. Shermer.
She should be popping in right now.
Welcome, Ms. Shermer.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Curry and the rest of the members of the IDEA committee. I'm Julie Shermer. I'm a Falmouth resident. I am here representing National Association of Social Workers, the main chapter. I am their president-elect and co-chair of the policy committee. And as my written testimony shows, we urge you to consider including and listing specifically social workers instead of kind of lumping them into. I'm hoping that Senator Baldacci was thinking of lumping us into the public health workers as listed. Social workers, and my reason for this is social workers have had similar legislation to have loan forgiveness, and it has no funding. So I'm hoping that this doesn't happen to this bill for our EMS, firefighters, and public health workers, including us. Social workers, as my testimony shows, have a salary that is on par with all of the professions listed. Yet their expenses for getting there are far exceed what it takes to be what the other professions do. For a typical social work case manager, you typically have a 4-year degree. At USM, that would cost around $28,000 just for tuition. For a master's level program, that would include an additional I think it would be about $45,000 to $64,000 for the additional 2 years for graduate work. And the typical salaries, $18 for a case manager, $22 for a master's prepared social worker. I would venture to say and advocate that social workers are public health workers. We keep people off the streets. We keep them out of the prison systems. Anything else that I wanted to highlight? And there's a huge shortage. So there's a shortage of both case managers and master's prepared social workers, which have become more dire with COVID and the onslaught of people being more isolated and the increase in depression and anxiety since COVID has happened. So I'm urging you to, number one, list social workers as specifically in the bill, and actually listening to everyone in the prior discussion, it doesn't seem, I would want the amount to be more, but what I want is the amount to be funded. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shermer. And not to honor your statement on the tuition, but if you include required fees, I think we're getting to $40,000 up, not including any of the housing related needs for students. So tuition and fees, I think you're around $40,000 in the humane system. That's an estimate if anyone's fact checking me.
Okay.
And Chair recognizes Representative Hassenfuss.
Thank you, Senator Curry. I'll ask the same question that I asked earlier, and that is, what is the biggest hindrance keeping young adults from going into this profession, or from having experienced workers in the profession stay in the profession instead of leaving for something else?
I think people go into the profession not to make money. But so I think people who go into the profession are very mission oriented. If you are money oriented, you wouldn't do this job, right? You wouldn't do any of the jobs that are listed in this bill. I think we lose a huge amount. There's a podcast that I listed in my testimony that if you listen to it, a lot of the social work professors are saying they're losing people right out the bat from remaining in Maine. And it's not very hard to look online to see that we pay social workers the least amount. And social work, we need to do a better job in Maine across the board on multiple levels. This is just one of them. Reimbursement levels here are a third of what they are in like Massachusetts, maybe a half of what they are in Vermont and New Hampshire. So it's way easy to see, if you graduate, am I doing a good job either staying in Maine or moving across the border to New Hampshire? So I think pay is a big thing. I think, burnout is a big thing with social work and probably with all of these professions. So I think people leave the profession that way as well. So I think those are two major things. It's one thing being drawn and then being kept in Maine and being kept in the profession.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much for your testimony this morning.
Thank you.
Are there, Ms. Reed, are there any other people here to give testimony on LD 1785?
Yes, we have Rebecca Graham. I'm adding her in right now.
Great, thank you very much. Welcome, Ms. Graham. Your camera is off right now, but if you'd like to keep it off, you're welcome to, but if you'd like to turn it on.
Yeah, I'm in that temporary limbo, so I was trying to get to my controls. And now it looks like. Oh. Still not starting?
Not seeing it yet.
Try.
If it doesn't start, you're welcome to deliver your testimony. We just won't see you, but we'll hear you.
There we go. Apologies. It switched cameras.
Welcome.
Thank you, Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and members of the Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business Committee. My name is Rebecca Graham, and I'm here providing testimony neither for nor against LD 785 as placeholder testimony on behalf of Maine Municipal Association. Our legislative policy hasn't been able to meet yet to take an official position on this particular bill, and we will on January 20th. So if there hasn't been any decision from the committee, I will submit supplemental testimony providing our official position on this at that time. In general, however, municipal officials historically welcome any assistance that our state and federal partners have provided to assist municipalities in retaining critical public safety workers. And in spirit anyways, Senator Baldacci's bill mirrors something that used to be available from the federal level called the Officer Next Door program. And that would provide some low interest loans to law enforcement to help them afford to live in the communities that they serve and increase their connections to those that they do serve. For fire and emergency medical services, student loan forgiveness could help lower the cost of pursuing higher education, but it could also attract new candidates into rural service areas where municipal incentives for employees to pursue education are harder for residents to be able to shoulder through the property tax assessment burden, and salaries are generally lower as well, or often heavily reliant upon volunteers. This summer, Maine Municipal Association, along with Maine Chiefs of Police, conducted a survey to collect some vital information to help drive public policy with some Maine-specific data. And education levels were one of the questions that we actually asked the chiefs. And they reported that less than 11% of their patrol officers come into those services without a degree. And over 70% of those same agencies and municipalities provide a number of incentives for continuing education, and they range from paid tuition to hourly or annual stipends for certain degree levels, and reimbursements for books and other materials that aren't traditionally covered under tuition reimbursement, other tuition reimbursement programs. However, there are a number of barriers too for folks, at least within law enforcement and as well as in fire and EMS, for using those incentives. They're often left unused due to the rotational nature of those shifts, forced overtime, and the need to have a predictable schedule that's frequently required to commit to a full semester program. We feel like that we've heard pretty consistently over the past couple of years from the legislature that there's an increased call for deeper education for all of our public safety professionals. And with historic challenges to recruitment and retention and an over-reliance on a volunteer model for delivery of education, particularly within the Maine Criminal Justice Academy, it does make sense that the state would adopt a program that would support those people rather than place additional barriers to those public service. But that said, again, I'm presenting neither for nor against because our LPC hasn't taken their formal position. I suspect that they will support, and I'm going to take everything that I've learned here in this particular hearing back to them to inform that position. But I'd be happy to obtain any further information that the committee might like to know from municipal officials as well before the work session. And I will submit additional written testimony after that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Representative Hasselfuss.
Thank you, Senator Curry. Ms. Graham, what have you heard, what has MMA heard from the towns about their needs for these types of occupations, their retention, their recruitment efforts, things like that? So what's all happening on the ground, on the town level that you've heard?
Thank you for that question, Representative Hasselfuss. There are a number of things. One is that there's very few applicants for a lot of these open positions, that there's also historic vacancies from folks that are leaving. They're either burnt out or they've moved into other professions where there's a little more predictability in their schedule and a little less continuous stress for them. What we've heard from chiefs over the summer specifically is that they would like to focus on retention. That retention in and of itself creates recruitment. Because if you retain the people that you know that you have that are really good and solid, then they naturally recruit because they pick people like them who they want to work with and will naturally draw them to their services. And unfortunately, that's kind of what is happening as well at the municipal level. And I think in every other level, both state and county, that we're basically pulling from all of our neighbors, trying to find the best people to fill those positions with not a large backlog of folks that are willing to move into those services.
And have they indicated what the best process is for retention, or where they need help with retention?
I know some of the chiefs are asking within their control, knowing that there's an annual budget within municipalities, so it's not like you can give them a bump on a regular basis. But there are other quality of life things that they're trying to address within the confines of the law enforcement service delivery, which is not a traditional 9 to 5 type role. And some of those are simply maybe being able to shift an individual's schedule around so that in the summer they have more time. They're not working on the weekends, but they have more time when their children aren't in like a summer camp or a day camp where they're actually home and can connect with them on their days off. Because of the rotational nature, their days off might not fall within the same schedule as their children in the summer when they would have more opportunities. So they're reaching out individually within their own services to figure out what they might be. But obviously one of the incentives that is used consistently is money. And we do hear anecdotally that some service providers will come to folks within other agencies that they know and say, hey, come work for us. You know, we can give you $5 or $10 more an hour and less stress, less calls. We don't have 4 bars. You know, those types of quality of life things are what folks are evaluating as they move around.
Seeing no other questions. Thank you very much, Ms. Graham.
Thank you.
And I'll ask Ms. Reed if you could shift Ken Mason into the panelist. I see he's coming right now. Thank you. Welcome. Is it Sheriff Mason? Sheriff Mason,
It
floor
is,
yours.
yes. Good morning. How are you?
Very good.
Good. All right. So Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, and Economic Advancement in Business. My name is Ken Mason, and I am the sheriff here in Kennebec County. And I'm here on behalf of the Maine Sheriff's Association. We as Maine Sheriffs, we met to discuss the bill, and our unanimous position is to support LD 1785, an act to address staffing shortages and critical public safety jobs through economic incentives. With the addition of language to include county corrections officers as candidate for student loan forgiveness. Now, sheriffs across the state, we are facing unprecedented challenges, substance abuse, lack of mental health facilities, reoccurring COVID outbreaks. They are stretching our resources beyond capacity, managing these other adverse situations while facing critical staffing shortages. Simply, it isn't viable or sustainable. Now, Senator Baldacci and other Maine leaders, they recognize how counties have grappled with extreme staffing shortages never before experienced by your sitting sheriffs. We know that the sheriffs from all corners of this state covering shifts within the jails when there are shortages of corrections officers, they're covering court assignments, and weekend laundry shifts in their jails. While they do not cover urgent need under their leadership, we must do better in finding ways to fill vacant positions in county sheriff's offices and their jails. LD 1785 will not correct the extreme staffing shortages that you see in Maine's 16 counties. Maine sheriffs, we recognize this bill offers an essential first step in recruiting and retaining qualified candidates for our counties by reducing financial pressures for these new hires, while supporting higher education. We urge you to give this bill robust support and unanimously pass LD 1785. Now, we deeply appreciate your consideration, and I would be pleased to answer any questions that you folks may have.
Thank you, Sheriff Mason. Are there any questions? Chair recognizes Representative LaRochelle.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning, Chief Mason. Good to see you. I guess the only question I had was, Do you happen to know what the cost and time commitment is for training a correctional officer?
The training cost itself, I believe it's gone down a little bit because we're doing it remotely now. The individuals that are going through the training are really spending about 5 weeks on the computer with, I think, 2 or 3 days at the academy. I want to say it's $500 or $600. And to outfit an individual to work the floors with all the equipment necessary is roughly in the neighborhood of probably $700. It is much less expensive than outfitting a deputy.
Okay, and when you say outfitting, that's the cost that the county incurs, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. And did I mistitle you? Is it Chief Mason or Sheriff Mason?
No, it's Sheriff Mason.
Sheriff,
I'm not stuck on my title, don't worry.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Reed, are there any, I'm scanning the list of those signed up for testimony. Is there anyone else here? I'm not seeing anyone.
I believe we are all set for 1785.
Great. Having heard all of the public testimony for LD 1785, I will close the public hearing on LD 1785. I see a number of questions. Hands have just gone up. Chair recognizes Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Ms. Olson for the work session. And
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, request to the at the end of public hearings, we often will request things we'd like to know from Ms. Olson. So Representative Roberts, thank you.
yes, so I was scanning some of the written testimony as well, and there's reference to other states that have similar forgiveness or mortgage loan programs. I'm wondering if you can unearth any of that between now and the work session, just to see what other states are doing. Thanks.
Chair recognizes Representative Pedworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very much in favor of a bill such as this, but I am concerned. And so some of my questions for the work session, one, a better definition of public health workers. We certainly heard that from Ms. Shermer. And how would these two programs actually fit into existing programs, including some that we only very recently passed? That to me feels like a lot of work to position this. So I am concerned about us taking it up at this time, but we know how desperate we are for local EMS providers, and hearing again about social workers and making sure that they are added in seems very important. So we have some work to do at the work session.
Ms. Olson, do you have a clarifying question?
I think so, Representative Pepworth. So was that a request? Would you like me to bring some definitions of public health workers that already exist in statute or that may already exist in statute to the work session? And also, would you like an overview of the programs, for example, that Mr. Norbert referenced? So we could talk about where it might fit into the program, into what we already have in place. Is that what you're looking for? Okay.
Yes, please.
Great. Okay.
And also just to further that, making sure that our net is as wide as other similar programs in statute would have us be. If we include social workers, who else might that lead us to then?
Chair recognizes Senator Searway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was wondering if this 10 million would fit into any federal monies for the COVID, because of all the shortages we have, it's kind of caused by COVID. So if that would fit into that, that might be a good answer. But just can we find that out, Rachel?
I can look into some of the language, some of the guidance that's issued by the federal government around some of that money, see what I can bring back.
Thank you.
And I think that wraps up our questions for Ms. Olson. Very good. At this point, we'll open up the work session for LD 1793, an act to support statewide economic recovery through strategic investment. And the chair recognizes the bill sponsor, who is Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me just okay. Hey, good morning. Is it afternoon? It's not afternoon yet. Good morning, Senator Curry and esteemed colleagues of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. My name is Tiffany Roberts, and I represent House, which includes parts of North and South Berwick. As House Chair of this committee, I am pleased to sponsor LD 1793, an act to support statewide economic recovery through strategic investments. This bill amends part of DECD's authorizing statute to provide the department the authority to directly grant, loan, and invest money in private entities, boosting economic recovery throughout our state as we continue to recover from the devastating impacts inflicted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Although DECD has long managed programs that provide funds to private businesses, those funds have always flowed through a partner organization, such as one of the economic development districts or a municipality. The influx of new funds and programming over the past 2 years has increased the need for flexibility in how the department may distribute money. This bill would address that need for administrative flexibility without altering the substance or funding levels of programs managed by DECD. DECD is charged with implementing a number of new initiatives using the recovery funds allocated by LD 1733 last year. Providing the department the tools necessary to carry out those initiatives efficiently will help ensure the legislature's goals for those new funds are realized. Heather Johnson, the Commissioner of DECD, is with us here today and will speak further on the purpose of this bill and answer any questions you may have. I would like to note in advance of Commissioner Johnson's testimony that the department did recently identify an accounting issue caused by the current bill text, which the Commissioner will touch on. The department expects to have a solution to that issue in the coming days, and we can plan to correct the text as needed during our work session. I want to thank the committee for their time and consideration. Again, I'm happy to try to answer any questions, but we'll mostly defer to the department on this one.
Are there any questions for Chair Roberts? Seeing none, we've promoted Commissioner Johnson, and she's coming in now. Welcome, Commissioner Johnson.
Good morning. It's nice to see everyone. Welcome back. It's good to be back in committee. You all. Let's see. So Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and members of the Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. My name is Heather Johnson, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Economic and Community Development. I'm here today to testify in support of LD 1793. Over the course of the last 14 months, the Department of Economic and Community Development has been able to work with economic development partners across the state to distribute $273 million to businesses and nonprofit organizations that needed financial support to facilitate recovery from impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Maine is fortunate to be a state where local, regional, and statewide organizations work well together. This group of people all prioritized getting the funds in the hands of the businesses and organizations that needed it to support their viability. It was often a difficult and cumbersome task to share information and ensure consistency, but the economic development districts and many CDFIs work together to do just that. We're very grateful for their ongoing partnership and want to work together at a different level so that we're not at that crisis level of support. And we can talk a little bit about that after, but this legislation will help create a path for DECD to offer direct administration of economic development funds. While we intend to continue the strong collaboration with the economic development districts, CDFIs, and other community partners, it's important that we have the authority to execute programs directly if other options are not available in an efficient and cost-effective manner. DECD's authorizing statute 5 MRSA section 13056 charges DECD with encouraging the development of our economy in compliance with the state's strategic plan and implementing economic and community programs assigned to us by the legislature and the governor. LD 1733 would address these issues by giving the DECD the authority to grant, loan, and invest money in private entities and in nonprofit organizations as needed. As we enter this phase of transition from economic recovery to the groundwork for long-term economic growth, our economy would be better served if we have the ability to disperse funds directly and efficiently. New DECD programming in line with the strategy, including funding from the Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan, would have a clear distribution mechanism in the form of grants, loans, and investments. Simplifying the process of dispersing these funds will also mean simplifying accountability for how they're spent, having the appropriate authority to directly allocate funds, allows for clear accounting for how the programs work. The department certainly can provide the legislature with reports in our old mode and in this mode, of course. And we do want to note, as Representative Roberts mentioned, there was a small accounting piece. The way the text of the legislation reads, it works directly with one of our accounts, and that doesn't line up to the federal funds as well. So we'll just need to maybe talk through that quick adjustment in work session. With the improvement that this bill makes to our department, the state of Maine will be better able to invest in economic development, continue collaboration with economic development partners when objectives and timelines allow, and should be more efficient for Maine businesses and nonprofits. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Can you speak to what might have been different in this last year if you had this authority already? What you would have, how it worked now, given the limitation, and how you might have done something different if you had this authority in the last 6 months or year?
I can. Thank you, Senator Curry. What we had, so if you think about the structure of the economic development districts and of people like MTI and CEI and others, they have very clear legislative authority to do things. So MTI can invest in 7 structured sectors. If we needed to support businesses that were outside those sectors, like hospitality, hospitality is not one of the 7 sectors. We certainly needed to help the hospitality sector. MTI couldn't be a partner. If you think about the economic development districts, they are geographic, and they have a whole mission of their own. And in many cases, they had to put their mission aside to help in this crisis management mode. They don't have staffs built for this necessarily, right? And so they had to kind of shift and adjust. We had some economic development districts that were supporting businesses and organizations outside of their area. And they did an amazing job. And we clearly want to keep using those avenues where those avenues line up strategically and appropriately. But we've asked them to live in a crisis management world with us for 18 months. And we've used their capacity really to its max. And as we move forward, we'd like to be able to just be more thoughtful about how we work these programs, how we balance that workload, and who we use and how we do that work. I don't know if that answers your question, Senator.
It certainly does, yes. Representative Pebworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Commissioner, for being here again. We've seen a lot of you, even if you haven't seen as much of us. You mentioned reports and accountability, and I wonder if that's something that should be specified, spelled out specifically in this legislation.
Yeah, happy to do that. I think there are maybe a couple of things that could be added as part of the work session as we think about kind of the work session and adjusting any of that language. We're, any of the funds that we put out are a matter of public record and get posted on our website and other things, but would love to come back and work with the committee on that directly so that we can report directly to you all and you can ask questions. I know that's been a discussion Representative Ducharme had actually asked for as well. So as one of the sponsors, I think that would likely come up. And we think that's a really helpful part of the process.
When we talk about economic growth, let's work together. Absolutely. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Ducharme.
Thank you, Senator Curry. So I just did want to weigh in. I think with the structural ideas of accountability and reporting, I think that's an important piece. And also going behind this to make them more nimble makes a whole lot of sense. So that's the big reason I'm supporting it. And I think we can build in the accountability pieces to make it work. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Commissioner Johnson? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you all.
Ms. Reed, are there any other folks here to speak on LD 1793?
Ann Robinson should be popping in right now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Welcome, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and members of the committee. My name is Ann Robinson, and I'm here today on behalf of the Maine Jobs Council to speak neither for nor against LD 1793. Before I go any further, I just want to make sure you can all hear me.
Yes.
Or Senator, if you could just acknowledge that you can.
We can, yes, go ahead. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can now. The screen at my end was frozen for a minute, so I wasn't sure. And I guess in the interest of full disclosure, there's a message flashing up on my screen that my internet is unstable, and which is a surprise. I'm in my office, so I apologize if I lose you midway through this. But again, Ann Robinson, I'm with Pierce Atwood. I'm a lawyer with Pierce Atwood, but I'm here today, or I am here today on behalf of the Maine Jobs Council to speak neither for nor against this bill. The Maine Jobs Council is a statewide, nonpartisan, member-driven advocacy organization that advances public policies to support the creation and preservation of foundational jobs in Maine. And foundational jobs are those that add value or bring revenue into Maine and include manufacturing, construction, transportation, energy, farming, fishing, forestry, tourism, new 21st century businesses, and any entity that sells out of state. We want to take the opportunity to make the point as a threshold matter that the state's primary role and top priority should be crafting regulatory and fiscal policies that enable Maine businesses to compete successfully against and to attract capital from its sister states. Private investors are expert, they're full-time and at risk, and should be viewed as the primary source of investment in Maine. If we foster conditions that attract private investors, there may well be little, if any, need for state investment. That said, any investment, whether it be public or private, should focus on foundational jobs and how to create, promote, and support them. Strategic investments are those that help Maine win the competition for new quality foundational jobs that help keep and attract young people, increase diversity, and enable workers to support families in the service and public sectors. Public investment programs need to support broad business sectors generally and avoid creating false markets that would not otherwise exist. Investment in workforce development and campaigns to tout Maine's statewide advantages might be examples of this. But as proposed, the establishment of the Maine Economic Development Fund lacks specificity with regard to funding objectives and to the meaning of strategic plan. This makes it difficult to discern how funds will be allocated and the resulting economic benefit, if any. I would note that although the impetus for the legislation, or the focus of it, has been the distribution of COVID relief funding, the legislation, of course, proposes the means for allocating state funding in general and on a permanent basis. So before the committee endorses this proposal, appropriate investment criteria, strategic objectives, and funding parameters should be established. And obviously there's been already some discussion here at the hearing today on this point. It's essential that anything done along these lines have the ultimate net result of improving Maine's economy, providing a meaningful return on Maine's investment, and enhancing the ability of Maine businesses to compete. The program should not be funded or administered in a manner that has a negative impact on existing or potential sources of foundational jobs. So I thank you for your time. I'd be happy to respond to questions, and I will be available for the work session. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your testimony. I'm wondering if you could expand maybe on what you see as a defined ROI for this piece of legislation, maybe.
Well, before I guess we could even get to how the ROI would be defined, it needs to be clarified as to what the criteria are going to be for identifying candidates, if you will, or eligibility for the funds. I mean, as the bill is drafted, there were really no criteria given, whatsoever.
Are there other questions? Chair recognizes Senator Searway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How you doing today?
Well,
good.
I'm well.
I just wanted to ask, when they say this will simplify everything, it sounds to me on your end that it simplifies it, but it just doesn't direct it very well. So I'm kind of concerned there on how, when you go and simplify things, you're cutting everything out, and then what's going to be if we cut those things out? That's
right.
The question.
Right. So I think it's important to distinguish between the administrative function of execution that the commissioner spoke to, and and the desire to eliminate an unnecessary outside entity being involved in that execution. I mean, it's simplifying it in that sense. Probably makes sense, but the threshold question, I mean, it begs the question of how the funds should be allocated in the first instance. First of all, to what extent there should be state fundings, set up in this context, and what the criteria should be for allocating the funds.
Chair recognizes Representative Ducharme.
Thank you, Senator Curry. As I understand this bill, and perhaps it's not crafted as well as it could be, but there's a disconnect between what already happened and what can happen. The statute currently does not allow federal funds to be run through an existing fund within DECD's scope of funds. And what this bill wants to do is to create a fund to accept those federal funds to be distributed through the various programs that are set up through DECD as directed by the legislature. Just anecdotally, I'm on the Appropriations Committee, and in the $980 million of ARPA funds, about 230 million went to various programs through DECD. And because they're federal funds, they can't go into that main development fund to be dispersed. So there needs to be a different fund. And I think, as Representative Roberts and Commissioner Johnson both said, there's an accounting piece that needs to be taken care of. It appears to be more of a structural mechanism to get money on the street than it is to be defining programs and investment objectives. I think, when I first read through it, I felt, very much like, okay, what's the return on investment and so forth and so on. But when you boil it down to the creation of the means to be a fiscal agent to disperse these federal funds, then it becomes clear. And I think that's the intent behind it. And we can ask Commissioner Johnson if buying it, or if that is in fact what the legislation proposes to do.
Is that a question, Representative Ducharme?
No, I guess it's probably a statement. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. We're
As a
all working
sponsor,
on
I think
this.
I can make a statement.
We're all working
I'm a
on this.
sponsor, so I can make a statement.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Chair recognizes Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When Representative Ducharme was talking, it made me ask a question in my head. I'm curious if this would allow DCD to disperse ARPA funds without legislative input. If anybody could touch on that.
Is that a question we can put to our analyst to bring back to the work session?
Absolutely, that would work for me.
Okay, great. Excellent, thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, members of the committee.
Ms. Reed, are there any other folks here for public testimony for LD 1793?
We are all set on 1793.
Okay. Are there any other questions that we would like to bring to that we would ask Ms. Olson to bring back to the committee for the work session? Seeing none. And so we would expect more information on Representative Andrews' question, and we were informed that there would be an amendment coming to it as well. So, okay, we'll now close the public hearing on LD 1793, and we'll open up the public hearing on LD 1800. And I would ask the bill sponsor, which is Chair Roberts, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, again. And we're still in good morning, Senator Curry and distinguished colleagues of the Joint Standing Committee on Innovation, Development, Economic Advancement, and Business. My name is still Tiffany Roberts, and I still represent House District 6, which includes parts of North and South Berwick. And House Chair of this committee, I am pleased to sponsor LD 1800, an act to amend the laws governing the Small Enterprise Growth Program on behalf of the Small Enterprise Growth Board, which does business as the Maine Venture Fund. This bill would amend the laws governing the Maine Venture Fund by permitting their board of directors to invest in certain privately managed venture capital funds. This activity would complement their direct investment approach with the goal of bringing more capital to Maine companies. It also makes certain technical changes to the fund's governing statute, such as adding officers, adjusting member terms, and updating the names of certain participating partner agencies. The Maine Venture Fund is a professionally managed fund that invests exclusively in Maine-based companies that demonstrate potential for substantial growth and success that will contribute to our state's prosperity. Since 1997, it has invested more than $20 million in Maine businesses, providing resources that have spurred innovation and supported economic growth throughout our state. Joe Powers, the managing director of the Maine Venture Fund, is with us today to speak on the need for this bill and answer any specific questions you may have. Thank you for considering my testimony, and Again, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have, but we'll defer to the agency again. Thank you.
And thank you, Representative Roberts. Are there any questions for Representative Roberts? I am promoting Mr. Powers right now. Welcome, Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Senator Curry. I'm just trying to get off video here, or get on video. So bear with me. Okay, I think this is going to get it.
There you go. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Curry, Representative Roberts, and distinguished members of the IDEA Committee. My name is Joe Powers. I am the Managing Director of the Small Enterprise Growth Fund, known as Maine Venture Fund, or MVF. I live in Portland, and I'm here to testify in support of LD 1800, an act to amend the laws governing the Small Enterprise Growth Program. First, I'd like to thank Representative Roberts for sponsoring the bill on our behalf, and Senator Curry and Representative Pebworth for their input in crafting the bill. Nice to see you all today. As Representative Roberts mentioned, this bill would amend the laws governing Maine Venture Fund by permitting our board of directors to invest in certain privately managed venture capital funds. It also makes technical updates to our governing statute, such as adding officers, adjusting member terms, and adjusting the names of participating partner agencies. The bill is needed to expand the amount of capital available to Maine-based growth companies so they can more quickly grow quality jobs in the state. Investing in third-party funds in parallel with the direct investment by my team would allow MVF to invest more capital and with a broader array of expertise. The MVF board would have the discretion to screen for third-party fund managers who are Maine-centric in their investment activity and would target a level of investment back into Maine above the original level invested by MVF, which would be possible because of the multiplying effects of the private capital these funds would bring to bear alongside any investment from MVF. This change would also be important and helpful for allocating federal stimulus funding in an efficient and timely manner. And we just heard a little bit about that with LD 1793. Note that the Finance Authority of Maine already has the statutory ability to invest capital into third-party funds. Allowing MVF that same flexibility would buttress FAME's efforts in an area where MVF's management team and board have considerable expertise. Thank you for your consideration of my testimony. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Chair recognizes Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for being here today. I was noticing in a summary that it mentions certain privately managed venture capital funds. Is there a listing or a definition of what that certain means?
Thanks, Representative Andrews. No, not at the moment. We don't have funds that we have identified as those third-party funds. I think there are several funds in Maine that have that Maine centricity that the board could and would consider. One of them is located at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. That's a fund that's focused on blue ocean technology, and obviously, very Maine-based in its roots. Maine Health has a couple of funds that would be potential as well. The Rue Institute in Portland has the potential to create Maine-based funds in artificial intelligence, computer science, some of their focus areas. So I think the intention here is to first pave the way for Maine Venture Fund to have this flexibility, and then look more carefully at some of the potential funds that exist here and more that are emerging every day.
Do you think it would be possible to get a list of prospective or probable funds you might be investing in for the work session?
Yes.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Austin. Representative Austin, you're still muted.
Joe, welcome. You come with great tidings from John Burns has introduced you to me, or me to you. I don't know which way it goes. But in the case of examples, I don't know if this is appropriate to ask you if Blue Shift, is that a project that would that be an example of something that they could have the advantage of being considered with this work?
Yes, we have talked with Blue Shift for last couple of years, watching them kind of grow their company, and are really excited about what they're doing. That's a great example of the types of companies that Maine Venture Fund invests in today. We wouldn't need per se this particular legislation in order to invest in Blue Shift, but I think that's a company where, when the timing is right for both parties, we would potentially look at them. They just so you know, they are raising capital through a crowdfunding campaign at the moment, so that's their current avenue to funding their operations, but certainly could be a potential in the future.
Thank you very much. My question parallels somewhat with Representative Andrews, is just to see those examples. I think, for our new members and particularly for me, of just a refresher of what some of the past successes and things have been. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Powers, a question for you is, if, as you imagine what a potential partnership or being able to invest in, let's say, Gulf of Maine Research Institute, what makes that advantageous compared to investing directly in similar companies in that sector, or investing in companies that they also invest in?
Yeah, great question. Primarily, we are at Maine Venture Fund a generalist fund, which means we invest across all different industries, really anything that has the potential to add significant job growth and hopefully public benefit as well in Maine. The benefit of investing with third-party fund managers that focus in a particular sector is that they have deep expertise and networks within those sectors. So to the extent that we would be investing into a fund at GMRI, they're going to be looking much more closely and have a much deeper connection to what's happening within that particular industry, have a much better sense of what types of companies are going to be successful given some of the factors affecting those industries. And it doesn't preclude us from investing alongside GMRI, but it just gives us a little bit of that parallel track to get more capital into companies more quickly and in a more efficient manner.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Curry.
Ms. Reed, are there any other folks in the attendee list that are seeking to give testimony on LD 1800?
There is no more testimony for LD 1800.
Okay. And let's see, are there questions or requests of the analyst that the committee members would like to make before we close this public hearing?
If not, I will just note that the Maine Venture Fund did submit their periodic report for fiscal year 2021. They're one of our quasi-independent agencies, so you can find that report on our committee materials webpage under quasi-independent agency reports. So if you're looking for more information on Maine Venture Fund and what they do specifically, you have that report from their most recent year. And I'll include a link in the bill analysis and materials, but since it's there, I wanted to let you know.
And while I have shifted Mr. Powers to the attendee list, I trust he's still listening. I am noticing that I don't see the testimony in our testimony link. Am I missing that, or?
It's actually from Bill Norbert.
Okay, so the testimony is within Bill Norbert's testimony?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. With that, having heard all the public testimony on LD 1800, we will close the public hearing on LD 1800. At this point, having heard all testimony for all bills scheduled for today, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Wait a minute.
Nope.
I will not entertain a motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
I will notice that the committee analyst is waving frantically.
we're trying to be as efficient with all of our time as possible. So I wanted to review the revised language letter, or the revised language in the letter to DPFR for the real estate appraiser's website. That was LD 239 that I brought up on Thursday last week. The letter was not verifiable that it was sent. The committee decided that they would like to send the letter now, and asked me to report back with an appropriate date for the department to report back to us on the updates to the real estate appraiser's website as it pertains to the complaint process. I reached out and they came back and said that the April 1st deadline suggested by the committee would be workable, and I've updated the letter. I sent that to the committee yesterday. So this is essentially language review for the letter. If there's anything that you think I missed or needs correction, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll send it this afternoon.
Are there any amendments or opposition to the letter as sent to us? I think we're good.
Great. And then can we talk
Yes.
about jackets?
Yes. Some committee kind of paperwork and moving things along and causing trying to keep everything efficient and speedy for our clerk and analyst. Bill jackets. So let's remind everybody of the process for signing off on bill jackets. So after a vote, we will get a bill jacket from the committee clerk. Is that correct? That we need to respond via email to say that that is approving that was your vote, that you're signing in the committee room. This would have been your signature. Now it is an email response. Please do that right away so that the committee clerk does not have to chase you down. And then what was the second area that we had? Oh, and second day votes. So we have, Ms. Olson, can you remind us how long we have until, if you are not here during a vote, or if you're not able to be on screen during a vote, when you're able to submit that vote?
I'm actually going to hand that question off to Miss Reed, who's responsible for that. So
Thank you very
she's
much.
the authority on that.
You are muted.
Just got
There
it.
you
You have until the second business day at noon to send in your vote to either me in person or to Rose, or is it Lynn?
The
Lynn,
majority.
yeah. Handling.
Okay. Great. Excellent. Senator Searway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we know if there's any that we have coming now that we had voted on or anything, or are we just starting fresh here?
We saw one came through yesterday or the day before, correct? Ms.
Yes.
Reed?
Yes, we got one that was recommitted back to us.
And what, and that was the re-referral. That was the
right.
To judiciary, the re-referral to judiciary.
Did we have just, I don't know if I've seen where we got a sign on yet, but have you seen that yet? Not.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Have you seen where we have to sign on yet on that or not?
I can resend the 6 people I haven't gotten answers from the email, if that would help.
That'd be great.
Thank you. Ms. Olson, were there other things you wanted to remind us of?
No, those were, that was on my list today. So unless there are other questions, and just as a reminder, again, we're working pretty quickly, but if you have any questions for me or you want any assistance with anything from drafting to just questions about our workflow, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can get me by phone or email. So please don't hesitate.
Representative Austin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can either Rachel or Eva just give us a couple of those phone numbers. I think I just took Lynn's off from the telephone board. I don't know why I did that, but I think I did. If we could just have the number in our committee again. Sometimes those do change on us and we don't know it. And Lynn's, and maybe even Rachel. I just if those could be sent to us in an email, that would be helpful.
So the committee phone number, committee room phone number, and the where else to submit the so Rose's phone number and Lynn's in the House side. Are those the numbers you want?
Yes, to help us just process if we do miss voting, being on screen to vote.
Okay, thank you. Senator Seaway?
Yeah, just quick, can we get all the phone numbers? And that way we'd have that as well.
All the phone numbers, what do you mean by that?
You know, a list of our committee members and the phone numbers, contact information. I think that would be really helpful. Because I know we've had a new person on and we have.
Oh, do you mean members' phone numbers, like all the members?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe I have a copy of that. I can send you over an email in a few minutes.
Great. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? I think this can be a hand raise.